Hey everybody. I'm just we've got a live stream coming up, or a premiere at 4 p.m. Pacific today. But I am making one of my videos for a thing called What's Next Wednesdays, and I thought, you know what? Let's just go a little crazy. I've never done this before. What I'm gonna do is I just started a new live stream, no prepared thumbnail, no anything, and I'm gonna live stream as I record, so you can see the behind the scenes of what it looks like when I record. All right, so to set the framework, first of all, thanks for joining us. This is so a little unnerving for me, I tell you, because normally I'm like isolated. I've got my bat cave and no one is watching me create the content. So here's what I did. I'm creating What's Next Wednesdays. I did a few videos on what is a console port, how to connect to the console port, what is a terminal emulator, and I just created one that's scheduled for like the 15th or 22nd, I forget which, coming up on what is DHCP. And I thought, you know what, I still remember back when I was getting my first gear back in the 90s, like 1998, and getting the IP address configured for the first time. And so this video for the What's Next Wednesdays, hopefully it'll edit down to like 5, maybe 6 minutes. I want to take somebody who is brand new, they've got their console cable, mine's connected right now, they've got their console cable, and they want to get an IP address on the networking device and actually have some action. So as a setup for this, I've got a 2911 here, I've got the console cable connected, I've got the Ethernet port connected, but it's just bare minimum, dead flat, non-configured. So that's my intent to start at that point. So you'll see me rehearse a few times with the intro, trying to get it to stick, and then I'll edit it all down. If you want to see this, in like 3 weeks, this video will debut as a premiere, the final edited, which my goal is 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes. So again, if you're joining me for this, you're watching me behind the scenes create content, which is I'm freaking nervous. I'll tell you that. I'm so nervous because no one's ever watched me make it. Well, I've had some trainers at CBT Nuggets that I work with them when they're onboarding who've watched me. But anyway, this is very personal for me. So thanks for joining me. All right. So I need a really snazzy intro that'll be succinct and to the point. I also like to think, what is the purpose of this video? What problem does it solve? I got it. All right. I'm gonna give myself a few moments. Look at you. And then I'm gonna start. You know, I still remember back in 1998 when I got my first Cisco router and I was eager to get it going. And in the previous videos for What's Next Wednesdays, we've taken a look at some concepts of what is a console port, how to connect to the console port. But now it is time, if you're just starting with Cisco networking and you've got some physical gear, is to get that networking device connected and actually connect it to the internet. So let me share with you the diagram of the game plan, how I have the connections, and then let's do it together. Big smile because I'm happy that part's over. Changing my camera's over. And verifying, I gotta minimize that. There's a delay on the YouTube feedback where it's like, hello, hello, hello. All right, I'll edit that part out. Okay, great. So thanks for joining me. If you're just joining me, I'm on the wrong camera. Hold on a second, I'm over here. If you're just joining me, this is just me creating a video for YouTube on getting a router connected to the internet. And great, okay, here we go. So you know when a person is gonna bake something or prepare a recipe, you have to have the ingredients. So let's take a moment and confirm that we have all the ingredients we need to get a router that we have in our home lab on the internet, or give it an IP address. So first of all, we're gonna need a terminal emulator. Now we have a video in What's Next Wednesdays in that playlist about what is a terminal emulator. We also have a video on what is a console cable. I currently have a console cable connected to my computer and to my networking gear. And we're also going to need an Ethernet cable. Now, an Ethernet cable has several different names. I've heard it called a patch cable, LAN cable, network cable, Ethernet cable. And so I've got that connectivity as well. In fact, let me show you those connections. Let me bring it over to this camera. So this is a Cisco router. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's a 2911, and I have the Ethernet port right here. It's labeled, right on the port, it's labeled gig 00. So I have that plugged in, the Ethernet cable, plugged in from here, and I have it plugged into my little home router, a little switch port on my home router. So on your switch port at your house, your device that's acting as the access point, the wireless piece, and also the router. It usually has 2 or 3 or 4 available ports, and that's what I'm simply plugging into. Those are little mini switch ports on your device. So that's plugged in. I've got the console cable plugged in, and we've had previous videos on that. And now I'm going to use a terminal emulator to connect to that device, to this router, so we can start taking a look at it. This is getting exciting. Let's take a look. And as I almost forgot you were watching, by the way. It's great to have you here eavesdropping on my my video editing and creation. Also, check back in 3 weeks from today. This video, which is going to end up as 5 minutes, it'll premiere, and you can actually see it and say, wow, that's a 5-minute video, and it's right to the point. And I won't have any side talking with you. I'll edit all this out. This part's just for us. All right. And okay, lost my pen. Where's my pen? There it is. Got it. Where's my camera? There you are. Okay, so to let me get my okay. So to complete this picture, I've got my terminal emulator putty. It's all ready to go. I've got the console cable and the Ethernet cable all plugged in. In fact, the router looks like this. Here's the 2911, and I'll even color code it. I've got the console port that's plugged into my computer via USB. Fantastic. I've got the color. I'm using a yellow patch cable, and that yellow patch cable, that's hey Keith, that's not yellow. I know, let me fix that. I've got the yellow patch cable, there we go, plugged in there, and that is going to my little router, to the Ethernet port on my router. So I've got the router connected to my home router, and I've got the console port that I can now use to manage and work with this device. The other thing I'd have you do, if it's your first networking device, make sure you identify the interface where you're connecting. So in my case, I'm just looking physically at it. It's G for gigabit 0/0. Your interface may be FA for fast Ethernet, and it may be 1/0 or 0/1. It'll be labeled right on the port. That's going to be important because what we're going to do is we're going to tell that interface to wake up and smell the coffee. And another thing we're going to do is tell it to come up. Like, not sit down, don't be shut, bring yourself up. So here's the commands that we're going to use. And what I'll do is I'll bring up the terminal emulator, putty. We had a separate video just on that. And let's do this together. In fact, I'm always excited when a router and its interface come up for the first time and actually communicate to other devices. It's a hoot. So let's do it. As I put my pen away, clear off that scratch, and I'll bring up my terminal emulator. So the reason I'm using putty right here is because most people can get putty for free. So I love Secure CRT. I use it most of the time when I'm not using putty. But for the demos, I want to do putty because it's free and everybody can get at it. Also in the playlist, there's 3 or 4 other videos that lead up to this. What is a console port? How to connect to it? How to connect to your computer with putty and so forth. All right. So I will do a little editing and it'll come in at this point. All right, so we've covered our first 4 things. We've got a terminal emulator, putty, which is right here, a console cable, the Ethernet cable, and I've identified the interface as gig 00. So if one of the most important things right here is to press enter. Once you connect to putty and you're at the console port, press enter, and that wakes up the actual connection. So sometimes we stare, it's like, why isn't it responding? Press enter, and that should give us the router prompt. Now, if you're brand new to Cisco, this router prompt it has the default name of router. I am router. We can change that later. It also has this prompt right here, which represents the privilege level that we're currently in. So the greater than symbol basically means that everybody else is greater than you. We are at a very low privilege level. That's a great way to remember. It's called user mode. And if we want to configure this router, the first command we're going to issue is enable. And I'm going to do an enable space and a question mark. And the question mark, after we hit the space, can give us other options that are available. When we type in enable and just press enter, all like by itself, there's no password required by default on gear that's been wiped. Its configuration's been wiped. And what this is really doing, it's putting us into privilege level 15, which think of privilege level 15 like King Kong mode. So if we did the command show privilege, and you can also type out part of a command, and if it's unique, you can hit tab. It auto completes for you, so you can see the whole word. And that simply says you're at privilege 15. So we saved a couple of steps. We typed in enable instead of enable 15, and by default we typed in enable, but it's in privilege level 15 mode. Now, check this out. What we're going to do is we want to see In fact, we're going to take a direct path. We're going to follow this right here. We pressed enter, we typed in enable, and now we're going to go into configuration mode. So if we want to configure, it means change this router, we're going to type in configure. And you can type in part of a command, and if it's unique, you can tab it out and it'll auto-complete. That happens on a lot of Linux operating systems as well. And then we have options of, okay, it says basically, you want to configure from where? And I'm just like, we want to tell the router, hey, I want to configure you from the terminal that I'm currently using to connect to you, which is right here. So that's what we're going to type in, terminal. And what configure space terminal means is I want to configure you, Mr. Router, from this terminal session that I currently have with you for my terminal emulator, buddy. Great. Now we're in this place called global configuration mode. And here we could do global things like change the name on the router. We could set other parameters. But what we want to do, we want to go talk to the specific interface, gig00, and tell it to wake up and start playing ball with the IP network. And to do that, we need to, it's like, think of it like walking into a specific room just for that interface, just for that gig00 interface. And the way we go into that room, so you and I can configure just that interface, is we type in interface, which the router gets excited, is saying, oh, you want to go configure an interface, but which one? If we do a question mark, you know, there's a lot of potential interfaces. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to go into gigabit, and I just typed in GIG and tab, and that auto completes. So you can also use shortcuts if you want, but I want to show you the full commands here. Interface gigabit, and we want to go to 0/0. Now, you might ask the question, Keith, why gig00? And the answer is, that's the interface that I have the Ethernet cable plugged into. So I have this Ethernet cable that's plugged into gig00 that's going to my little switch in my home network. So we're now in interface configuration mode on this router, and we're almost done. Check this out. As I get the right button. So the next thing we're going to do is, as we follow this list, and also as you come back to this video and you walk through getting your router on the internet for the first time, you can just follow these exact steps and they should be the same for you, with the exception of the interface. If it's fast Ethernet or gigabit 1/0, you have to follow the specific interface for your device. And then the next step, as I look here, is we're going to do IP address space DHCP. So we'll type IP address. And now, if we wanted to, like if we were like IP address proficientos and we knew the IP addressing and all how to do that, we could actually type in the literal IP address we want to use. And if you want to know more about IP addresses, there's a separate video on what is an IP address, and I have a whole playlist on subnetting for IP addresses. But for here, the fastest and quickest way to get this router on the internet is to do this. IP address space DHCP, which is the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Press enter, and now this interface is going to say, great. Once I'm up, it's not up yet, but once I'm turned up, I'm brought up out of shutdown state, I will go ahead and do the whole discover, offer, request, acknowledgement process with the DHCP server on the network and see if I can't get an IP address and a default gateway and a whole bunch of other cool stuff without us having to configure a whole bunch of details. So the last step here is no shutdown. I once had a dog that I wanted to teach, it was a Cisco dog, and I wanted to teach it to stand up. So to teach it to stand up, I issued the command no sit, and it would stand up. This is how we bring an interface on a Cisco device up. On routers, the interfaces are shut down by default, and to bring it up, we use the command no, as in please don't be shut down. And I'll spell that correctly. All right, and then once we do this, look at this. Look at the console port. This is the console we're looking at. It just is showing us that there's a change. Says interface gig00 is now down. Now it's up. That's great. And what I'm hoping for is I'm hoping for some kind of a message saying it got an IP address. So I'm going to type in end, which is how you get out of yay, party on, party on. So it scrolled it. Let me go ahead and bring it over here a little bit more. Look at this. It got the IP address of 192.168.1.21 with that mask. It also learned some information about who to forward packets to if it wants to forward packets off the local network. And that all happened via DHCP. And to test this out, so I've typed in end. I'm now at the router prompt. Check this out. Let's do a ping to 8.8.8.8, which is a DNS server for Google. That worked. Seemed pretty fast. Let's try something more interesting. Let's do a trace route out to 8.8.8.8. And that's showing us each of the hops in the path, each of the routers that are being gone through by this router as it forwards packets to my little home router, then to the next router, and the next router, and the next router, until it gets response and hits 8888. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you in this video about getting your first IP address up and running and active on your home lab gear. If you are brand new, you can follow these steps verbatim. If you have any questions about, okay, what exactly is a console port and how do I find it? How do I use a terminal emulator? Those are all separate videos as part of the What's Next Wednesday series here on the Keith Barker channel. All right, so that's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next live event or the next premiere. Meanwhile, be well, be happy, and be kind to everybody. Thanks. See you next time. And I'll be back in just a moment if you guys want to hang on for a second. I just need 20 seconds for an end screen. And we're back. I'm going to stop my recording. All right, so in the background, I can go edit that. And that should be about 5 to 6 minutes at the max. And let me just check and see if anybody's still here. Hey, great, thanks. Thanks for watching me create a video in the background. I had my son, a little background on this, and then we have a premiere here at 4 o'clock today. So going forward for the next while is What's Next Wednesdays, which I'm going to focus on the basics. I have my son Brody and a friend at work, Matt Beecher. They are both starting their journey in the world of Cisco, and they had some common questions. I was like, what's a console port? How do I connect to a console port? What's a terminal emulator? How does DHCP work? Why do I need it? And so I'm creating these videos for them, and well, I shouldn't say just for them, for anybody who's brand new to networking and has these common questions. This is what the What's Next Wednesdays is all about. So it's like, what do I do next? And I'm going to put them at the Wednesday 4 p.m. slot consistently. So if you are above that, meaning you've already got your CCNA or you're well on your way, you might find the Wednesdays content to be a good refresher, but it probably won't be new information, but it will be new information for the tens of thousands of people, literally, every month that are getting into the world of networking and Cisco. And I just want to help everybody I can make sure that's as smooth as possible. All right. And I'll tell you what, today at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is like an hour and a half from now, there's a premiere. It's a short one, pretty darn short. Maybe, I think it's 5 to 8 minutes for What's Next Wednesdays. And after that, we'll jump into the Discord server. There's a link in the video description for that premiere, and we can hang out. You can ask questions, and I can connect with you more then. So just taking a look at the numbers here. How many people are in this stream right now? Let me maximize this. So 61 people for a random Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time stream. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next live event or the next premiere or in Discord on chat. So thanks again for watching me behind the scenes create a video for YouTube. Bye for now.